Okay, so this is Plotting Palooza Part 2. We're going to now go back to the GitHub page. So this is lesson 14. And go to our lessons page on the GitHub page. And you can see that there are, this lesson 14 is divided into 6 sections. I'm only going to cover 1 through 5 today. The 6th one is kind of extra. You can go through it on your own, but it's not absolutely critical. So what we can do is click on that first lesson. Go to that raw format, and we're going to copy that URL. Now this time I want to do something a little different. Since we have 6 lessons that are all the same, except for there's one number that's different. So what we're going to do, we can make a little loop just to get some practice. So for I in 1 through 6, do curl -o quotes, and then we're going to go here and change that 14.1 to 14.$. We're going to put the I in brackets here, so that what that does is it makes sure that the shell knows that it's a variable and it's not. If there was an underscore after that, it would try to make the variable having. I would think that we were typing a longer variable. We just want the I to be the variable. Oops, I forgot one thing. So we need this do command here first. Or maybe I did type it. Sorry. See if that works. Okay. So, sorry. The command should be for I in 1 through 6. You can hit enter or a semicolon, do, and then you can hit enter or just a space, and then curl -o, and then that whole URL, but we replaced the 14.1 with 14.$ curly bracket, I close curly bracket, and then .ipynb in quotes, and then another semicolon, then done. So this whole thing is a for loop. I just hit cancel because I already did that. And then it will just run that curl command for each of the 6 files. So we now have everything on our folder. So super handy. And now we already did source activate Python 3. And now we're going to type Jupyter Notebook. And lesson 14.1. Okay, so this is Seaborn. So Seaborn is basically a wrapper of matplotlib that handles a lot of the details that we just covered. You have the option using Seaborn, and there's some other packages too, but Seaborn is the main one I want to cover. You have the option of not having to type all that stuff and just making using much fewer commands to get basically the same output. It kind of wraps a lot of the main statistics functions that we might want to do. Question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the for.
Okay. Well, you figure that out. I'm going to show you guys so if you go to seaborn.pydata.org, PyData hosts a lot of the Python packages and documentation. And you go up here to gallery. You can, much like the the Matplotlib gallery that I showed you, there's a Seaborn gallery where you can click on plots that interest you or look like something you'd want to do, and see how they're generated. And so you can see that it's very simple syntax to make a very complicated or very detailed plot. So I'm gonna show you how this all works. So as usual, we're going to do matplotlib inline, and then we're going to import numpy as np. We're going to import matplotlib as mpl, and we're going to import matplotlib pyplot as plt, and we're going to create a random number seed. So first thing we're going to do is just create a simple function that will plot some sine waves and allow us to see the output. So this is the function. Doesn't really matter what it is. And did anybody get? Everybody's got these packages already, so that shouldn't give you an error. So we're going to just see. This is what this plot looks like with the matplotlib defaults. So if we want to, I need to change this. So what happened was the older version of Seaborn, when you imported it, would automatically change the aesthetics of the figure. Now they change the behavior so that you actually have to specify that. So what we're going to do is, first of all, go back to your terminal, and we're going to, again, make sure, I just went to the second tab, which should be unused, and we can do conda, make sure you're in your Python 3 environment, conda install Seaborn. Okay, so mine was already installed, but you should have installed it there. So now we can go back to our window, and we're going to import Seaborn as SNS. So this is the standard abbreviation for Seaborn, SNS. And then we're going to type sns.set, which will set the Seaborn defaults as the defaults for all matplotlib. So anytime we do matplotlib in this notebook, it's going to use the coloring and the defaults for Seaborn, and then we're going to plot this sine function. So you can see that there's some differences. There's a different color scheme. There's also different. This is sort of a white plot with no grid lines or anything, and this is a gray background with white grid lines. Some people prefer this style, the creators of Seaborn do, but we can customize that, as we'll see. So particularly there are 5 preset themes. There's dark grid, which is what the default is. That's this one here. There's white grid, where the colors are switched, so it's white with gray grid lines. There's dark, which is just a gray background with no grid lines. There's white, which is similar to the matplotlib default, so just a white background. And then there's one called ticks, which is a white background with tick marks. Depending on what you're trying to do, you will get different output. And in fact, depending on what kind of plot you use, you'll get slightly different output. So with a box plot, it will render horizontal grid lines, but not vertical ones, because the horizontal ones are the ones that you need to be able to interpret the data. The whole idea with Seaborn is to make the defaults that give better rendering of statistical data that allows you to see patterns. So for example, you might want not to have grid lines. You can just use this sns.setStyle, and it will change the style to those defaults, and that will be maintained until you change it again. So you can set style white. This is ticks. So those are the 5 main styles that come with Seaborn. You can remove the axes and ticks from the top and the right using this despine function. Sorry, I forgot to have you guys clear all the output, but no problem. This will be a different way to experience it. So you'll see the plots before I regenerate them, which actually is maybe good for plotting, so you can see what's going to happen before we do it. So we've here we can use subplot. So all of the matplotlib functions that we just covered are compatible with Seaborn. So you can effectively, what will happen is you can do all the same functions, but the default color scheme and the default rendering will be changed, so it's using the Seaborn defaults. So here we can use a violin plot, and we're going to use despine with offset equals to 10 and trim equals true. So we're going to trim out the parts that that would occur like near the origin here. So this could be handy to kind of clean up and show your data a little more clearly with the axes a little bit further away. If you only wanted to despine the left axis, or rather, yeah, you only wanted to despine the left axis and not the bottom, you can do something like this. It's where you say left equals true. Another thing that Seaborn supports is this with command. So we saw with when we were doing opening and closing files and using this to automatically close a file handle after we had opened it. So that same kind of idea works here, where you can temporarily plot with a certain style, and then when you don't have to unset the style when you're done. So instead of saying set style, you can use this axis style thing. So you can say with Seaborn axis style is dark grid, I want to do a subplot. So this is another way. Instead of having the commas here, we can just concatenate those digits, and so we can say it's going to be a 2x1 subplot, so 2 rows, 1 column, and then in position 1, we're going to have this first subplot, and then we're going to exit out of that with block, and now we're going to do a second subplot with a slightly different sign plot. But the idea is that the first one has this dark grid style, and then the bottom one we've gone back to the default style that we still have. So it gives us the option to temporarily change the style without having to set and then reset the style. We also have all of these extra styles available. So if you type sns.axisstyle, it will spit out this long dictionary, right? This is a dictionary of keys and values, and these are the defaults that are currently being used, or these are the settings that are currently being used. So if we change the style, we can set like the face color here. We can say axes.faceColor using this syntax. We can set style using this dark grid default, but then with axes face color as 0.9. We can plot that, and then we can execute this axis style again to check that indeed we had changed this axis face color, the value to 0.9. Now, we also have these various contexts that we can use. So first thing we're going to do is reset the default parameters by calling set. So this is what you would do either at the beginning of your notebook if you wanted to use the Seaborn defaults in all of your plots, or if you want to just reset everything to the defaults. So we'll do that. And then there are these 4 preset contexts. So the cool thing about this is that you can take the same plot, and there's these presets that will change the fonts and the line widths and stuff to make it more suited for a particular context. So there's one context called paper, so we can do sns.setContext paper, and this will use like smaller fonts and thinner lines. But if we want to plot that same plot, but instead of to publish in a paper, we're going to give a talk, you can set the context to talk, and you can see that it will make the lines wider and the fonts bigger. And then there's poster, which is even bigger. And then there's a final one, notebook, which is the default, so like a Python notebook or a Jupyter notebook. So we can, in addition to setting the context, so here we're going to set it back to the default, but we're going to, we can also scale the font this way, so we're going to font scale 1.5, and we can also set the line widths using this RC parameter. I'll explain what that is in a second. So here we're going to take the standard notebook font, but we're going to notebook style, but we're going to make the fonts 50% bigger, and the lines bigger too. So our line width was, I don't see it off the top of my head, but we'll make the lines a little bit bigger and make the font bigger. Now this RC thing, but this is a shorthand for, it stands for run and configure. This comes from old Unix jargon, meaning the commands are automatically run at startup and they configure your environment. So we had, at the beginning of the class, we edited our bash profile. Remember, we changed some of the settings in our bash profile. Another name for that file is called bash RC. So the RC is this run and configure. So what we're doing here is it's effectively a dictionary where we can pass multiple parameters and their settings right inside this command and kind of set everything at once. And then everything that we do after that will all be scaled or modified accordingly to those parameters. And if we decide that we don't want to do this for everything, we can either use a with statement, as I showed, and temporarily test out some settings without changing everything. Or if we want to reset our settings, we can either restart our notebook or just use this Seaborn set function, and that will do it too.